Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Kiyan.
And this is Triple Play, that podcast where we're definitely dead this time. Because this month we watched the Bourne trilogy, so that's Bourne Identity, Bourne Supremacy, and Bourne Ultimatum.
Written by Tony Gilroy, William Blake Herron, Scott Z. Burns, and George Nolfi.
Directed by Doug Liman and Paul Greengrass, and then produced by Doug Liman, Patrick Crowley, Richard N. Gladstein, Frank Marshall, and Paul L. Sandberg.
And released in 2002, 2004, and 2007.
Yeah. So
yeah, just right off the bat, not even sure why the second one's called the Bourne Supremacy and the third one's called the Bourne Ultimatum.
Because that was the names of the second and third books.
Yeah, I know, but why was... Okay, whatever. I guess because in the second one, he was, like, really overpowered, so it's the Bourne Supremacy. I don't know, I'm just making this up. I still don't know what the ultimatum... I still don't know what the ultimatum was, but anyway.
Maybe the ultimatum is clearer in the book when there was an actual unique plot instead of just ripping off the previous two films.
Hey, the third one was decent.
What a role reversal from yesterday. So, I guess we should start with how many times we've seen these films.
0 for me.
I've seen the first one a ton because it's always on TV, and I've seen a whole bunch of scenes from the other two a bunch because they're also always on TV. For some reason, these movies are just always on TV. So I'd actually already seen the ending of both the second and third one because they were both on TV. Also, it's really not clear which is the first one, so when you turn on the TV, it's like, Bourne Supremacy, you're like, oh man, this might be the first one. So you watch it, and then you're like, this wasn't the first one, was it?
So they just called it Bourne 2. No.
Well, the new one's just called Jason Bourne, so...
Yeah, they should have just called it Bourne 5, or whichever one this is now.
Yeah 5.
It's 5.
I think that was its production name, but then they were like... Call the film Bourne 5.
Yeah, actually, a lot of Robert Ludlum, or however you pronounce its novels, are they're
the name and then something else.
Yeah,
that's just his style.
I was looking at a list of his books, and I was like, they're all the same naming scheme. Anyway, yes, the Bourne trilogy.
So. Yeah, I guess we'll talk about production information like we always do. Well, actually, so Robert Ludlum wrote the book, I think, in the 60s?
Well, it came out in like 1980.
In the 80s? The 70s? In those decades.
He probably wrote it in the 70s, and it came out in 1980, unless he just speed wrote it in 1980.
And then they made it into a TV movie... in 86, I want to say.
I think it was 88, but it's something like that, yeah.
And that actually followed the plot of the novel.
Maybe that's why it didn't get as popular as these.
Because it followed the actual plot of the novel?
I read the plot of the novel. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
Well... Doug Liman was a big fan of the novel. He's like, yeah, I loved the novel when I read it as a teenager. So when...
Then he read it again. He was like, yeah, it's still pretty good.
Yeah, so when Universal was like, we're going to make a movie, Doug was like, sign me up.
Wasn't he the one who pushed for them to get the rights to the movie?
He spent a lot of time pushing Universal to buy the rights from Robert Ludlum, who was alive while they were making the first film. I think he died just before it came out. And I think he's credited as an executive producer or something.
Something that he didn't do.
And so Doug Liman went to meet with Tony Gilroy, who wrote the screenplay.
For all of them. Even though they kicked Liman off.
Well, I kicked Gilroy off on the third one too, but we'll get there. So they met and they were like, yeah, so the plot of the novel doesn't really make any sense in the modern world, so we're just going to scrap everything except for the basic premise, which is a spy loses his memory because he gets shot.
Yep.
So they scrapped everything and wrote a completely new script. a new story.
Well, it had bits and pieces from the book, but yeah, overall it was pretty much a new thing.
Yeah, and everyone was just okay with this. Even Robert Ludlum was just okay with this.
I guess so.
So they really just wanted the rights to the name, I guess.
Or they just really liked the premise.
True.
Which, I mean, it's a premise you can do a lot with.
Yeah, but you could have also just done that.
Guy wakes up with amnesia. You can pretty much write the entire rest of the story yourself without following anything.
Yeah. But they bought the rights anyway, so... Gilroy wrote a script. It was like, here's the script. Lyman was like, okay, this is a good script. And then they made the film. I mean...
Well, Lyman apparently was a hassle to work with.
Yeah.
He edited the script like back and forth between multiple different versions at multiple different points over the filming period. And he's gone on record as saying that in his previous movies, he sort of developed what the movie would be as he was shooting it. And he said that was okay because his other films were lower budget and not really with a known brand.
Yeah, indie films.
Yeah. So that was okay for the production of those movies, but there was a lot of pressure on this movie to do well. So Universal didn't really like that he was doing that.
Well, yeah, and he also was super insistent on a lot of things getting into the film when Universal's like, we don't have the budget for that. And he's like, yes, we do. Things like actually filming in Paris instead of like, I think they wanted to film in Montreal, and Lyman was like, no, we have to film in Paris. Has to be authentic. And Universal was like, you're insane. But they did it anyway. They filmed in Paris.
Well, he said, yeah, a lot of this stuff that they told him not to do, he just did anyway.
Yeah, like that farmhouse shot scene.
I mean, he said there's no city that looks like Paris, and to an extent, that's true. The more recognizable parts of Paris are, only in Paris.
Yeah, but
I mean, I'm sure that just the more suburby areas and also just some random side streets you could do anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, on the flip side of that, the scene in the movie was mostly just side streets and urban areas that weren't really the recognizable parts of Paris.
Yeah, I read that it obviously wasn't shot as one continuous thing, of course, but they kind of just jumped all over the city for that. And Lyman has said, like, yeah, if anyone's really familiar with the layout of Paris, they'll realize that scene makes no sense. And I actually watched some footage of a point where a car gets kind of T-boned in that scene, and it was kind of funny because obviously in the movie it doesn't look like, maybe it is, but it's sort of a parked car, I guess, just kind of going out, not swerving, but driving out into the street, and then Bourne just comes smashing through, or one of the cops or whatever. And but it's kind of funny because on the behind the scenes footage, you just see it's parked there, and all of a sudden it just swerves into the street and gets into this oncoming car. Pretty funny there. And I mean, that's how they do it, obviously, but yeah, it was just kind of funny to watch.
To watch how they made it. Apparently the relationship between Lyman and
everyone else.
Yeah, the studio got so bad that Matt Damon had to be an intermediary because the studio listened to Matt Damon, but they didn't listen to Lyman.
Yeah, so they got Matt Damon to play Jason Bourne. They'd considered other actors such as Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, they also did consider Russell Crowe, who I could actually see in the role.
And Brad Pitt.
Who, yeah, okay. But I mean, come on, those other two.
Sylvester Stallone is the best actor of our time, and nothing can convince me otherwise. No, but I think they turned those two down because they wanted to make Jason Bourne more of a younger spy than, like, James Bond.
Yeah, of course. And I don't know too much about James Bond, but the franchise was kind of in a lull at this point. So, like, quick, jump on this, get out this new spy movie. No, I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I think Pierce Brosnan didn't come back for a film after Die Another Day, and there was like 10 years before, some ridiculous amount of time before they actually ended up rebooting it with Casino Royale with Daniel Craig because they had a bankruptcy problem. So, so yeah, I guess Universal saw the hole and decided to go for it.
Yeah, eventually they got Matt Damon because I guess he was more on board with Lyman's vision about how he didn't want it to be a straight action movie.
Yeah, he wanted it
He wanted it to be a gay action movie. No. Yeah, he wanted it to be an art film.
Yeah, well, if anything, the second and third ones are more art films than the first one, thanks to all that shaky cam.
We'll get there. We're definitely gonna get to the shaky cam. But I mean, whether or not you consider it an art film, and you probably don't, they wanted it to be more character driven. And I can see that. I mean, the plot isn't the best thing out there, really, but the characters are interesting enough. Bourne has some depth to him, at least.
Yeah, he gets more later on.
Yeah,
when his girlfriend gets shot through the head.
I don't know, but...
Well, I guess they wanted to stay true to the
chest.
novel. No, it was the head.
No, it was the chest.
It was the head.
It's definitely like the chest or the
They
stomach.
definitely said the head in the third film.
It was definitely the stomach or something like that.
Bourne told...
Pretty sure it was
Bourne told her brother it was the head in the third film.
I don't remember that.
Anyway.
Go look it up.
No. So I think they wanted to stay true to the book in that aspect because the book was also apparently very character driven. I haven't read it.
Well,
I guess I think that's also what Robert Ludlum was known for. A lot of his books are character driven and less plot driven.
I guess, I mean, when you actually break it down, the plot itself is kind of thin.
Kind of.
That's why the first one was more exciting, because you actually didn't know who Bourne was. So it was kind of a mystery there, even though not much was happening in terms of plot. But anyway, whatever.
Yeah, they got 2 hours out of that. And then 2 more. And then 2 more. Anyway, apparently the original ending of the first film didn't test well with audiences, so they got together and filmed another ending. On zero budget.
It's kind of cool, though. He jumps down, like, the entire stairwell.
Yeah. He'd probably be dead if he did that in real life.
That was, like, the weirdest part of the movie, especially when you read how they didn't want him to be that much. They didn't want him to be, like, a big action hero or whatever. Bourne, that is. But then, I don't know, they had that scene in there.
Well...
This is weird. It wasn't bad, but just weird.
I guess. But, so yeah, they finished the first film. They didn't really plan to make a second one when they made the first one. They wanted to make it a self-contained story. And then it did really well. So like all the other stories we've done, they decided to make a sequel.
Well, there were 2 more books.
Yeah.
So, not that they followed the books, but...
No.
There were 2 more names to use, at least. The Bourne Supremacy and the Bourne Ultimatum.
Yeah, well, now that other guy's writing all continuation Bourne novels, they have more names they can use like they did for the Bourne Legacy.
Yeah, well, there's like 15 books now, so I think that's definitely more guilty of padding and drawing out the story than the movies are.
Yeah, well, Robert Ludlum himself only wrote 3. And then
croaked.
Yeah, he died, and some other continuation author was like, yeah, I'm just going to write tons more books. And Robert Ludlum's estate is just okay with this, apparently. I wonder if they're any good.
I don't know. Well, if you really want to find out, you can try and have the patience to sit through like 15 books. But it's kind of like the Wheel of Time series where the author died before writing like the final book, and he left instructions for like a successor that he named himself, and the successor was like, yeah, this is too much to fit into one book, so I'm just gonna write like 3.
It's also like Dune. Frank Herbert died before he could finish the final book, I think, so he left instructions for his son. Then his son took it, wrote the book, and he's like, I'm just gonna write all these prequel and sequel trilogies because I can.
Yeah, well, why even read anything past the first one anyway?
I don't know, but the moral takeaway from this is make sure you finish your book series before you die. Everyone will come along and mess them up after you're dead.
Or make them better. Who knows?
I think there's less of a chance of them being made better than worse. Anyway, so second film, they were like, how can we get Bourne back in the game?
Kill his girlfriend.
Apparently that was the one
and
plot
Russians.
the one plot point they took from the book. In the book, she gets kidnapped, and they're like, we can adapt that to the movie. We can just kill her. And also there was a line from the first movie where Bourne's like, I'm going to hunt you down if you come after me. So he thinks they're coming after him. His girlfriend gets killed, and he gets back in the game. Sounds easy peasy. Oh yeah, and Russians.
Don't forget the Russians. Also, they kicked Lyman off because they didn't like how he was playing paintball while he was supposed to be filming.
I don't think we mentioned that.
So now Paul Greengrass is directing. Guess the grass is always greener. Matt Damon actually said in an interview that he and actually a lot of the actors liked Lyman's filming style because he basically said that, I mean, actually, this is despite the fact that he wanted to make it an art film, I guess, he was kind of okay with just getting any shot. Like, he actually did all the camera work himself, which is interesting because a lot of directors don't do that. So a lot of the actors appreciated that. And there was this one little anecdote where they were filming the beginning of the movie where Bourne is on the boat.
Yeah.
And Lyman wanted to get in the shot before the sun was pretty much down, Damon said. And Lyman was like, no, we can get in the shot. We can get in the shot. And he was like, wow, he's like a kid making a movie in his backyard or something. And eventually they got the shot. It ended up just being a silhouette in the finished product, but I guess it looked good.
Yeah.
For the 1 second it was probably on screen.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, so Paul Greengrass is in now. Lyman is like, yeah, well, screw them.
He didn't really like being kicked off, especially when he was the one who pushed for Bourne so much and like kind of rewrote it-ish.
Yeah, but I think he understood. He was like, well, the studio didn't like me, so they kicked me off. Makes total sense to me. Anyway, yeah, they brought in Paul, and Gilroy came back to write the second one as well with some assistance. Apparently, Gilroy and Greengrass didn't get along that well because they had totally different styles to writing the scripts. Like, Gilroy wanted to write the script fully and then turn it in and be done with it, whereas Greengrass liked to basically change the script every day he filmed. He wanted the script to evolve as filming happened because of things that might come up during filming.
So that's kind of the same process as Lyman.
Yeah, kind of. But Paul Greengrass would make changes to the script himself and be like, this is the script we're using now. And Gilroy would be like, no, you're messing up my script. Greengrass would be like, no, I made it better.
There was more script jumping for the next two movies.
Yeah, well, it gets even worse for the third film, because in the third film, Tony Gilroy was like, yeah, I don't like Greengrass, so I'm not coming back to write the third one. And Universal was like, how about we give you a ton of money and you write us one draft of the movie and then you can walk away. And he's like, okay, sure. He wrote the draft and Matt Damon called it absolutely terrible.
Well, he apologized for that.
I mean, yeah, he apologized for saying it, but he said the script was he still phoned it in.
But he apologized, and that's what's important.
Yes. Well, they brought in these two other guys, Nolfi, and Burns. Apparently, Nolfi would be in his hotel working on the pages for the next day of filming while they were filming the movie. So more in line with Greengrass's style than Gilroy was. Anyway, yeah, so they were all big successes.
That's why they made a couple more.
They made a fourth
Even
one.
though the third one wraps it all up pretty nicely.
Yeah, and the fourth one, Matt Damon doesn't show up. It's about this other guy. Apparently the fourth one is written, produced, and directed by Gilroy.
I could have sworn that one still had what's-his-face Bourne in it, but...
No, it doesn't. Because they didn't want to, quote-unquote, pull a bond on Matt Damon and recast Bourne.
They could have done it.
They could have, but they didn't want to.
Well, Matt Damon's coming back for the next one, which is about to come out, which is why we're doing this, if you didn't know.
And, yeah. And I think the studio also said, hey, we might bring back that guy from the fourth one in a future film if people want us to.
Well, that could be cool. Obviously, I don't know the plot of the fourth one or the new one coming out, but maybe they can meet.
That would be interesting. I think from what I read on Wikipedia is that the fourth one is about a CIA agent who gets outed because of them leaking everything about Blackbriar at the end of Ultimatum.
Spoiler alert.
So, like, he goes on the run. And then that's the plot of the film. What else do we have to talk about? There's some...
Music.
Music.
There's John Powell.
For all three of them.
Of Ice Age fame. And X-Men, for one of them.
Yeah. Apparently...
In Rio.
I watched Rio on a plane, but I didn't watch it. I watched the dude in front of me watching it.
What?
So I didn't know what was going on.
Why didn't you just watch it yourself?
Because I was trying to fall asleep, but like this guy was the only guy watching a film, so his screen was really bright on the airplane. I was like, ugh.
Rio was decent.
I don't know what they were saying. All I saw was the screen.
It doesn't matter. You can still follow the plot.
No, actually. Surprisingly not.
I don't know. I feel like you could for that movie.
Have you tried it?
That should have actually been the premise for Triple Play. Watch movies without audio and see if we can still understand them.
We should do that for a new podcast.
Actually, we can just... You don't actually have to watch them to know whether or not you'd understand it. Like, for this trilogy, no. The answer is just no. But for something like... Actually, nothing we watched you could probably understand without dialogue.
Yeah, probably not.
Actually, most movies you probably couldn't, so that would probably be a pretty crappy premise for a podcast, but...
No, we could watch the film without sound and then record the podcast on what we think happened, and then we can read the plot summary and we can see how wrong we were.
Coming soon to an iTunes near you. I don't know.
Podcast players near you.
That's not happening, probably.
Probably, but you never know. What were we talking? Oh, the music, right. Yeah, apparently the first film, they paid Carter Burwell to write the score. He's known for working with the Coen brothers a lot, so like True Grit and things like that. And he scored the entire first movie, and then Lyman came in and was like, no, the score sucks. Well, he didn't say it sucked. He's like, I don't like this score. It doesn't fit the movie I'm trying to make. So he scrapped the whole score.
And replaced it with drum and bass.
Yeah. John Powell had a limited budget because they spent all the music budget on Carter Burwell's score. So John Powell could only use drum and bass. And then like at the 11th hour, they added in some strings.
There's the theme, Jason Bourne theme, which is pretty okay, but... Not like I could whistle it right now.
Well, there's the incidental theme, and then there's the one they use in all the end credits. But yeah, obviously, in the second and third one, they knew they were having John Powell, so he could make better scores because he'd have more budget to do that.
Still didn't stand out too much.
Yeah, it basically sounds the same. So... That's
visual stuff. I mean, we can bring up the shaky cam in the second and third one, which it actually got. Reviewers didn't like it. You know, you go, okay, movie reviewers. But yeah, that actually was a problem with the movie, the shaky cam. I'm not opposed to shaky cam, but I mean, if you've seen the second and third one, you know about the overuse of shaky cam.
Yeah. I don't know. It felt like he was trying to go for a found footage style with the second and third films.
Yeah, but I don't see why or how that relates to the plot or anything. I mean, it's not like a mockumentary. Oh, maybe, I don't know.
You can make found footage style films that don't have to be mockumentaries. You can make found footage style films for any genre of film. But it didn't really work for this one.
Yeah, but it makes it seem more amateur, which also makes it seem more found. I don't know.
I think if you do it right, it can be good.
Well, I mean, you have to use it at some points, but and I'm not opposed to using it. I wouldn't even be opposed to using it in every scene like the second and third one seem to do, except in the fight scenes where it was just really, really shaky.
Yeah, you couldn't tell who was who in basically all of the fight scenes in these films. So,
Speaking of the fight scenes, the actors actually trained. Well, Matt Damon actually trained
yeah, they
for
used
like 3 months.
martial arts.
Yeah,
Apparently-
Filipino martial arts or
Yeah,
something.
apparently it was a slightly obscure style called Kali. Apparently they brought in someone to demonstrate a bunch of martial arts for Lyman and Damon. And they saw this one and like, that's what Bourne would use. We're going to train you in that. And Matt Damon's like, okay.
Apparently, because it doesn't expend very much energy.
Yeah, it
And
uses
that's
the
what Bourne-
opponent's energy against them. Which is what they were going for with Bourne. They're trying to make Bourne resourceful and young and intelligent. Also, I don't know, there's just a lot of anecdotes about all these movies that kind of all aren't that interesting. Like in the second film, they filmed all the locations in reverse order. So they filmed Moscow and then Berlin and then Goa. But they didn't actually film in Moscow. Spoiler alert, they filmed in Berlin, doubling as Moscow. And then in the third film, when they were filming at the train station, because they didn't want pedestrians ruining their shots, so they set up a film crew on one side of the station, and then Greengrass and Damon went with like a really small crew, got a shot on the other side of the station while everyone was taking pictures of the shoot, and then when everybody caught on, they switched sides, so they moved the fake crew to the other side, and they basically had to film like that to film that whole train sequence.
Other than that, there's a lot of nods to the first one in the third one. Intentional nods.
Yeah.
A lot of the shots are like frame for frame recreations of things you saw in the first one.
Yeah, and if you watch it back to back like we did, you start to notice all of them.
Yep.
Except the third one didn't have Bourne phoning people from payphones, so...
So it's not a true Bourne movie,
Yeah.
essentially. No. I mean, does that lead us into how it worked as a trilogy?
I guess I don't really have much else to say about these movies. They, production-wise, they kind of... After the first one, they weren't really that groundbreaking or innovative
Yeah, I mean,
or sketchy behind the scenes or something.
we didn't mention the first one was delayed, actually, due to all the stuff we mentioned, but I guess it was probably a good thing since it was supposed to come out in September 2001, and it's about spying and conspiracy and stuff, so, yeah.
Well, they were still worried that 9/11 was going to have an effect on the film, and turns out it didn't. Those fears were completely baseless, apparently. The third one was actually delayed as well because they couldn't get a script together because Gilroy buggered off.
But yeah, how it worked as a trilogy, I would say probably better than any other trilogy we've watched.
Yeah, actually, surprisingly, it works really well, excepting maybe... No,
What?
actually, you're right. No, you're right. I was going to say maybe Back to the Future, but... No, it works
Yeah,
really well
yeah.
as a trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, the first one answers some of your questions, so you don't walk away from the first one completely disappointed, but you go in to the second and third one wanting to find out more about Bourne, just like he wants to find out more about himself. So that's another thing they were going for. You know, you want to find out about Bourne's past and the conspiracy just as much as he does, which worked. And the third one, yeah, watching them back, the only downside I would say of watching them all back to back would be that it gets a bit samey.
Yeah.
I assume if you watch these in theaters as they came out, it'd be like, okay, 2 years later, so it's another Bourne movie. It's not that different, but it's been a couple years, so you're going. It's kind of nice that you're going in kind of to the same thing.
Yeah.
But watching them back to back, by the third one, it definitely does get a little grading like, okay, you can only watch so many chase scenes, you can only watch so many calling people from payphones. And
Google searches from an internet cafe.
yeah, well, the first one wasn't Google, it was something else, but yeah, I'd say the third one, despite being the weakest one, probably just because we watched them all in a row, the ending, it wraps it all up pretty nicely. So you can go in for that, and you probably won't be disappointed. Because while the plot was thin, it was
it
wasn't disappointing to me, at least.
The third one was the most difficult for them to figure out a plot to drive it forward, because the first one was really obvious. It's like, okay, he's lost his memory, he needs to figure out who he is. And the second one was like, okay, his girlfriend's dead, he's got to go take some revenge.
And the Russians.
And the Russians. The third one is like, well, why? I guess the third one, looking back on it, was more of a continuation of the second one than anything, because it takes place, the first scene takes place right after one of the final scenes of the second film, and then the final scene of the second film takes place like 3/4 of the way through the third film.
Yeah.
So
one of the things they wanted to do with the second movie was have Bourne go on like this journey to set all the things that he made wrong right. Because spoiler, he made a lot of stuff wrong before he lost his memory. And I forget who said this, but they said they failed in doing that. He does it. He goes back to what's her name at the end to reveal the truth. So that's something they wanted to do in the third. I didn't see too much of it in the third, but I guess the ending, the latter part of the movie where he's trying to reveal everything.
Blackbriar.
Yeah. And what's her name? Pamela also kind of... I liked that, actually. She was never really, like, bad, quote unquote. Obviously, she was the antagonist of the second one, but then she kind of not teams up, but helps Bourne in the third one. So,
well, something I was thinking about while looking up things about this film is that it's kind of this weird, as the three films move forward in time for present day Bourne, the things Bourne is remembering kind of move backwards in time. So for the very first one, all he remembers is his final mission getting shot. And then in the second one, he remembers his first mission. And then in the third one, he remembers actually signing up for the program. And I thought that was kind of just a neat thing that happened in this trilogy is how it kind of moves both ways in time through the films.
Yeah. Might be coincidental, might not be.
Yeah. And what I also liked about these films was their abrupt endings. Because there was really no other way for the films to end. That's why I liked them. Because they were like, okay, film's done. We're not going to drag it out to try to get you some sort of satisfying ending like some films do.
I guess. I mean, the endings were very abrupt. And when if you go and watch these, or if you've already watched them, you're probably like, wait, that's it? But then I guess when you think about it for just a minute more, you're like, yeah, I guess there's really not anything else for them to do.
Yeah, it's not like they were trying to drag it out to get you a satisfying ending like we do on this podcast sometimes.
The third one had a satisfying ending, though. They didn't drag it out, but
was the end of the trilogy.
I did really like the ending to the third one because it wrapped up pretty much the entire trilogy. Yeah, and not just crap they set up in the third one.
Well, it also kind of leaves it open for Bourne to return, which is like, yeah, we're going to make a fourth one. And Matt Damon was like, no, I'm not coming back unless you get Green Girls. And Green Girls is like, yeah, I don't want to do a fourth one. And yet somehow they decided to come back for the fifth one. Probably going to have more shaky cam because Green Girls is coming back yet again.
Who knows?
And yeah.
Well, I wonder if he could have died at the end of the third one.
Bourne?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
if they wanted to, they could have had him not swim away. They could have just had him end with him getting shot.
Or just not even show him. Yeah, not even show the...
But obviously they wanted to leave it open because...
of course. But
the Bourne franchise was a big moneymaker by that point, and...
I think plot-wise it might have even been more effective if he had died, but I don't know.
Maybe. Depends how... Yeah,
depends how much you want another Bourne movie with Matt Damon in it. No.
Well, that, and it also depends how they start the fifth one. If they start it immediately after the third one, if they wait like 2 years like they did between the first and the second one. Actually, that reminds me, I think the third film is now the most recent film we've watched for this podcast. since it came out in July of 2007. I think Spider-Man was May or April of 2007. So
All right, then.
if you're keeping track at home,
Or not. Well, I guess you are. I'm not.
I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that we cover a lot of time periods. Well,
I guess
actually,
Star Wars is the oldest, I think, 77.
Yeah, New Hope. So we've covered the movie years between New Hope and Bourne Ultimatum. Let me tell
40
you,
years.
in this coming year, we're going to expand that age-year gap even more. And I guess that's really all we have to say about these movies. My brother really likes these movies. He watches them every time they're on TV, which is why I've seen them like a million times. You have anything to add?
Well, we usually do expanded universe stuff. Obviously,
That's true,
this is based on a book series which has like 15 books, none of which I've read.
3 by Robert Ludlum and then a bunch
By some other dude.
by Robert Ludlum, yeah. I actually own, well, my dad owns the first book, but I haven't read it. I've read another Robert Ludlum book, and I actually really liked it. And I tried to read a different one, and that one
Hated
was
it.
It was really boring, actually, so I didn't get through it. But I can tell you they were vastly different plots, so at least Robert Ludlum has the ability to at least vary it up a bit.
Even if he can't do the same with his names.
I think it was just his trademark, you know. Every writer has their trademark. At least when you saw it on the shelf and you didn't see the author, you're like, that's a Robert Ludlum book because of his naming scheme.
Maybe.
Except not anymore, because that other guy's written all those other continuation novels. I think he's actually even written continuation novels for other characters that aren't Jason Bourne. And obviously there's a 4th and 5th movie.
And there's a, like we mentioned, an earlier adaptation from the 80s.
Wouldn't be surprised if there's a video game.
Maybe, I don't know.
Actually, is there?
I don't think there is.
I don't think, yeah, actually, I think you're right.
Surprisingly enough, I mean...
Yeah, there isn't. Surprisingly. Oh, there is. No, there is.
Yeah, okay, there is.
The Bourne Conspiracy.
I think that's one of the books.
It's probably
not based on the book.
It's probably one of the expansion books.
I think the Bourne Enigma is the newest book.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Comes out this year, actually. June 21st. So it'll be out by the time this episode goes out.
Watch, 20 years from now, there's just going to be the Bourne blank. Just think of a word and it'll be one of the Bourne books.
Deception. Actually, I think there's already a Bourne Deception.
Pretty sure there's already a Bourne Deception.
Bourne
Legacy. There's a Bourne Ascension. Wonder what he ascends
Betrayal, Sanction, Deception, Objective, Dominion, Imperative,
the Bourne Dominion.
Retribution, Ascendancy, and Enigma. Some of those sound better than others.
I like the Bourne Enigma. You should make that the next movie.
Yeah, well, they're breaking the naming scheme now by naming the next one Jason Bourne. That's only mildly irritating. Yeah, so that's that. And we forgot to mention that all 3 movies end with the same song on the ending credits. I liked that. They didn't end with, like, what was it? Heavy metal?
The Matrix.
Plus, it was nice when the song queued up and like, this is the end of the film. Those high-pitched strings.
I guess. I didn't mind either way.
I
Really.
should end this episode with that song. Well, anyway, you have anything else to add before we end this off?
I don't think so. Not really.
Email us at thedoctordecorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters. Bourne fan fiction probably exists.
Sure, it exists. I mean, there's like 12 books of it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. Kind of.
Savage. You can find Triple Play on YouTube, iTunes, and Google Play. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show. It helps us out. Tell your friends about the show. If they like the Bourne movies, they should listen to this episode. We're into year 2 of Triple Play, by the way, now. We're officially a year old.
Yay. Yeah, also check us out on Facebook, obviously, at Triple Play, Facebook or Facebook.com/3P Podcast, and like us on Facebook, and also check us out on Twitter at 3P Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next time, we're doing something from the Bourne universe. So it might be one of the books, maybe it'll be the first adaptation. Who
Just
knows?
read the Bourne Enigma.
The Bourne Enigma.
Without reading the previous books.
And then the month after that, were found guilty of the crimes of murder, armed robbery of citizens, state banks and post offices, the theft of sacred objects, arson in a state prison, perjury, bigamy, deserting our wives and children, inciting prostitution, kidnapping, extortion, receiving stolen goods, selling stolen goods, passing counterfeit money, and contrary to the laws of this state, were found guilty of using marked cards. But until then, the end.